Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman. Now, I want to welcome you to another very, very special edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit-Down. That's right, folks. We are strolling on over to the comic book corner once again this evening. So you know the drill. Pull up a chair. Take a seat. Tonight, we move on to number 2 on the Seaman's Infinity War countdown list. Iron Man. That's right. For those that are watching these out of order or just haven't caught the first one. We've done one already. We're not starting with Iron Man. We started chronologically. We went back to Captain America first because he took place first. Now we move on to Iron Man. Iron Man is number 2 on the list, second in the chronological journey that we are taking. And the original movie, the one that started it all, we have the Marvel Cinematic Universe because of Iron Man, because of Jon Favreau, and of course, because of Robert Downey Jr. So you know me, I like to start with the bad and with the good, and like I said, if you are just starting to catch on to these, we are spoiler-filled, folks, not spoiler-free. This movie came out all the way back in 2008. That's a 10-year gap. So we are going to just talk about it all. We're going to start with the bad. You know me, I don't like to end with bad, because who wants to end with a bad taste in their mouth? Especially when you're talking Marvel, because there's very few bad tastes in any of these movies. But there's 2. Again, just very similar to Cap. I got 2 gripes to pick with this one. First off, Obadiah. Now you're probably going to go, oh yeah, well, Obadiah is not a great villain. Not what I am talking about. When Obadiah is in his Iron Man suit, it just doesn't look or work as well as Tony's. It's strange. Tony wore a lot of practical wardrobe stuff. In the early movies, it wasn't all CG. He actually wore a lot of the actual iron suit. But clearly that didn't happen to Obadiah. And his head inside of it it looks like it's all CGI'd. So when you see it next to Tony's, it doesn't work as well. And then his voice gets modulated in a weird way that Tony's doesn't. I just wasn't a fan of it. And the other thing, again, we're going to go back to the villains. Not that I think Obi is a terrible villain. Obadiah does a lot better than I even realized. I used to harp on how bad Obi was. Jeff Bridges, who plays Obadiah, I used to not be a big fan either, and he's actually pretty good. The problem is the dual villain. There are 2 villains in this movie. Even though Obadiah is the big one, we get to spend 2 full acts, almost, with a man named Raza. That's right. The man Tony meets in the caves early on, one of the main leaders, it feels like, or at least of a sect of the 10 Rings, which is sprinkled throughout the whole movie. You see 10 Rings things, especially in the caves, a lot. All of which, has to deal with the Mandarin. We'll get there eventually. But Raza, played by Farron Tahir, is brilliant in the movie. And we get him for 2 acts, and all of a sudden there's a quick switch. And Obadiah's not bad, but you were doing all this building with Raza, and then just kind of threw the 3rd act to Obadiah, and it didn't quite work out as well as I think it could have, especially because we've never been able to bring Raza back, because we still need one more Iron Man movie. Please, Kevin Feige, give us a chance to see Iron Man walk off into the sunset like Logan did. Maybe bring back the actual Mandarin and get a chance to see Raza again. I like to dream big, folks. But that is also means that's it for the bad, because I only had 2. So on to the good. And it starts, Jon Favreau launched us into this universe by making a really good movie. And that's exactly what he does here. This, for me, is always the quintessential origin movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think it's the perfect origin movie. It so encapsulates who Tony is. Very much, it set the groundwork for what we got with Captain America, also a great origin movie. But this one just totally gets, gets how Tony is. And I love seeing Tony build in this movie. And it works in a very distinct 3-act set. And all 3 are pretty good. We start with Tony in the desert. Which is brilliant. I love starting it with the fun V, as he calls it, riding the Humvees with the other soldiers, as he's out there selling weapons. And you get to kind of feel this like, oh man, like you can tell they know the presence is in the car. And then you get to find out Tony's not a bad guy. Gets everybody to lighten up. He's like, this is the fun V. And then we get the explosion, and we get him being kidnapped. First shot of the 10 Rings sign is in that video. Boom, Iron Man. And then we literally get an introduction to Tony because of an award show. But his time in the desert is the most critical time. We then jump back, and we get to see the whole thing play out. And it's so well put together. Favreau does some excellent stuff in that sequence. It's almost horror driven, especially when he finally dons the first Iron Man suit. All of a sudden you're just seeing like people fly and just lights and dark, and there's so many horror elements in that opening sequence. Like I said, these early Marvel movies, they really did try to play around in a bunch of different places. And it works. It works really well. The whole cave sequence is amazing. His relationship with Sean Taub, who plays Yinsen, very similar to Dr. Erskine with Captain America. Yinsen's relationship with Tony is quintessential into what builds Tony into becoming Iron Man. He's the one that pushes him, and much like Erskine kind of pointed to the heart, Yinsen goes, he's like, thank you for saving my life, and Yinsen's like, don't waste your life. So a major death happens in that first act that has profound effects on Tony, very similar to Cap. And then there's a second act, and the second act is probably the most fun of the movie. Getting to watch Tony build things. That's what I love, man. We get the flashy Playboy stuff, but then when he's in the lab, you really get to see who Tony Stark is. I love seeing him work in the lab. I love seeing him work with the robots. His relationship with the one that continually sprays him with the fire extinguisher. If you douse me one more time, I am like sending you off to like a scrapyard, or to a community college. So one of those. The joke falls somewhere in there. The humor in this movie also fantastic. It's impossible not to be with someone as charismatic as Robert Downey Jr. playing Tony Stark, possibly the most charismatic of all the heroes. But yeah, just getting to see him build the Iron Man suit, figure out the suit, again, very similar to Cap in his second act when he starts to become Captain America. He doesn't quite fit his body, and he doesn't quite make it work. Takes Iron Man a little bit longer trying to figure out how to be Iron Man. The first time he puts his blasters on, he shoots himself into a wall. He crashes through floors and onto the cars. He crashes multiple times, which is why he keeps getting doused with the fire extinguisher. But when he finally gets out, much like Cap crashes through the window and then gets running, once Iron Man starts going, he figures it out quick, and he has so much fun, and we have so much fun with him. The second act of the movie is just tons and tons of fun. When he goes back to claim his weapons from the terrorists, also, big, quick side note, like we said with Cap, all about disabling the people he's not about killing. Iron Man, about protecting and serving the greater good. But if you're a bad guy, he ain't got no time for you, man. He kills tons of terrorists in this movie, which you can't be mad at him for, but it's a different approach than Cap, and that's very interesting because you start to see this parallel between the two big leaders, which lead us up to another movie. Man, God, everything Marvel is doing so smart. But yeah, watching him become Iron Man, especially when he goes back, just the little rocket that comes out and takes out the tank, which plays to a joke in Iron Man 2, which is hysterical. But yeah, just getting to see him play in that world and start to become Iron Man, so much fun. And the third act, him versus Obi, getting back the company, doing everything he wants. It's a fairly decent action sequence to take us out, even though the Obadiah villain hasn't been built as well as Raza has. It works, though. The third act still works, and it's Tony saving the day, and fully now he is Iron Man. And he himself declares it. He gets in front of a press conference. It's like, you guys are going to call me a superhero, and everyone's like, we're not calling you a superhero. He's like, you know what? No, I am Iron Man. One of the many things we love about Tony Stark is how brash and vocal and just upfront he is. But all of that works really, really well, and that 3-act set plays so well and just really does a great job of building Tony, and you see his character grow. From this guy who has been like, yeah, money, I love the money and everything, but now I'm getting my money because of these weapons, which are for America, and then they're in terrorist hands, and all this conflict. There's a lot of conflict always going on in Tony. But getting to see him work in the in the lab, and everything about him. You just get to see that grow into Iron Man by the third act, and it's why it's one of the best origin movies out there. Again, after you get through that, I mean, the action sequences are great in this. The visual effects are great. Like I said, there's a lot of practical effects in the suit early. A lot of times Downey actually had pieces on. Now a lot of it's CGI'd. But the go between the practical Iron Man and the CGI Iron Man are so smooth. Iron Man looks so good. You always feel like he's right there. Just everything, man. The action sequences are stellar. And they're all different, you have different vibes to all the different action sequences. And I loved everything Favreau did with this movie. And watching this movie reminded me so much of how badly I wish Favreau could have done Iron Man 3. Gotten to do a full 3-movie arc for himself. Because watching these movies, you see where he was, building Tony. He got us started on everything. Fortunately, Favreau, good team player, still comes on for the movies, but now he just gets to chill and be an actor. So when you have, again, like Cap, when you have everything working around you, the story is so strong in this movie, effects, action sequences, then the directing is doing such great things. Boom. It's the actors. And you have to start with Robert Downey Jr. He is the starting piece to all conversations Marvel movies. He started it all. And Downey is the perfect superhero, because he basically is his character in real life. Downey has always been very flashy. He's always been a bit of a party boy. He's always been a bit of walking that line of getting himself into trouble. All things that Tony does, and it's why his character works better than anyone else in the cinematic universe, because Downey, I really do believe, that Downey even believes that he is Iron Man in some way, shape, or form. And he does. He embodies everything about Stark so well. From the flashy party boy stuff to him working in the lab, it all clicks, and it's because Downey delivers such a stellar performance. Also, totally forgot how sharp his facial hair is. We're at a point now where Tony's got a lot more facial hair, but early on it was just the goatee. Man, it is clean and it is sharp. It's almost like it was drawn on there. One of the first things I kind of laughed at myself about when I was watching the movie. Like, oh man, forgot how nice Tony's facial hair is in these early movies. They didn't quite figure out the top yet. The hair's kind of long, but they eventually clean up the whole look for Tony as we move forward. But yeah, I mean, everything about him, he just encapsulates everything. I mean, he is the epitome of cool. We get to see him be funny around women and, just get to see him handle different people different ways. I mean, when Leslie Bibb shows up, who's a reporter, he ends up getting her to come home. She wakes up and Pepper's got her clothes dry cleaned already. The room is set up to give her a nice welcome to the morning. One of these things, hey, if I have women come over, they come over, boom, 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 I gotta go do my stuff. So all these things are laid out, and you kind of just laugh. So much of the humor in this movie is natural because of who Tony is and how he operates. So getting to see him do stuff like that, and then getting to see him interact with Pepper, where there's just tons of tension. He just pulls everything off because it's Downey being Downey. And like I said, watching the growth of this character, very much like watching Cap grow into Captain America, we watch Tony grow into becoming Iron Man. And between the direction of the movie and the writing and the stellar performance, you knew you had a winner on your hands real early. I mentioned Pepper Potts, who's played by Gwyneth Paltrow. Their chemistry is so good. Right from the get-go, you just get this awkward kind of feeling because they work together, and Pepper, again, another one of these strong female characters that Marvel loves to put out there that don't get talked about a ton because we're focused on the other guys. But Pepper keeps everything in line for Tony, keeps Tony in check, keeps Tony on schedule. I mean, Tony literally, she makes a joke in the movie that, Tony wouldn't, be able to survive without her. And she's like, what's your social security number? And he's like, it's 9 digits. Pepper does everything, and she's so strong. She's the only one that can put Tony in check when Tony's doing crazy Tony stuff. And because of that working relationship, even though there's sexual tension, and this is why it works so well, because you've seen this. I'm sure you've seen it in real life. When people who work together, kind of start getting into each other, it's super awkward every time they communicate. And it is like it's professional, but it's always trending kind of awkwardly because it's there and they don't address it, and again, much like Peggy Carter's the emotional heartbeat of Iron Man or of Captain America, Pepper Potts is the emotional heartbeat for Iron Man. Without Pepper, who knows who Iron Man is, because she's able to rein him in when he starts to kind of go out there. I love how strong she is. I love how she's able to be a leader when she needs to be. She plays a major role in the final act in saving Tony from Obadiah. And I love it. And Gwyneth is great. It was sad when she kind of said that she wouldn't do it anymore. But so good in this one. And their relationship with RDJ, just fantastic. Then we get to Obadiah Stane. Yes, something that many have put on the negative side of Captain America. But Jeff Bridges is brilliant in this movie, because Jeff Bridges is a brilliant actor. You're never going to get a bad performance from Jeff Bridges. He plays Obadiah super cool, man. I mean, he's always got the stogie, the bald hair, the perfectly groomed beard. He looks as cool as Tony. And he plays like that mentor figure for Tony so well early that the first time I saw the movie, I did not see the twist coming, because we're building Raza up and like, oh, Raza's not dead. And then Obi turns out to be the bad guy. And when he makes that switch to Iron Man at the gala event, when he's like, of course we're selling the weapons to everybody. How do you think we're making all the money we're making? That switch happens, and then he's sinister, man. I mean, he leaves Tony for dead. He leaves Raza for dead. He is sinister, and I think the reason that we have an issue with him is that we didn't get to build that from the beginning. If we had pinpointed Obadiah as the bad guy right from the get-go and got to the end, okay, now you have something a little bit different. But Bridges is always brilliant. His chemistry with Tony is so good, and they do such a good back and forth as we start to find out that Obadiah really is the bad guy. And it works up until he gets into the suit, and then it gets a little goofier. But I really did enjoy Jeff Bridges in the movie. I thought, he was really, really good until we find out he's the villain. And even then, he's still decent. He just can't be talked about among the upper echelon, because we only really spent about half an act with him, and I would have liked to have spent more. Of course, Happy Hogan, who's, Iron Man's sidekick driver, played by Jon Favreau himself. He's hysterical. He's the perfect sidekick, shows up and does everything Tony needs. They have a car race at one point, and Iron Man's like, man, I thought I lost you back there. And Happy's like, you did. I had to go, cut across the expressway. And, he just sets up for tons of humor. There's always one or two really, really good funny moments for Happy. Then, of course, Terrence Howard. Yeah, remember, folks, it wasn't always Don Cheadle playing War Machine. Terrence Howard got the first crack. Terrence Howard was good, but he's nothing special, and he's certainly not Don Cheadle. And that don't take, if Terrence Howard, if you're watching this, don't take that the wrong way. I love you, man. You do great work. But it just clicks. The Iron Man, the Tony, and the Rhodes connection clicks so much more with Don Cheadle. He just gets it better. Terrence Howard is good. He comes up, he shows up, he performs. Not shocking, though, that he was only here for one movie, which doesn't happen to too many people. Jarvis, we're going to talk all the characters. Paul Bettany. You forget that Paul Bettany wasn't always in human form, man. He's just the voice of Jarvis in the first early Iron Mans, man. He's just the voice of the house. He's brilliant, man. He provides tons of humor, much like the robots do. Like I said, any kind of tech that Tony can interact with is hysterical. Plays so well in the movie. We talked about Sean Taub, who plays Jensen. He's smart. He's clever. He totally feeds off of what Downey's doing. They have a really good working relationship. It kind of makes you go, I wish he didn't die, so we could have maybe seen, Tony could have brought him on, work for him, and could have seen them work together some more. But like I said, much like, he is Tony's Dr. Erskine, the guy who kind of gives him a starting point of something to build on, right? Like, oh man, they killed him. That's my first thing. I have to avenge that person. Very much like Erskine is. And Tony does it in a much angrier way than Cap does, right? Cap does it by the book. Tony's just like, I got flamethrowers. I got got little rockets and stuff, and it works really well. And then obviously, like I said, I mentioned him earlier, but Farhan Tahir, who plays Raza, is brilliant, man. He's such a good first act villain. He's such a good second act villain that I wish he would have been the main villain the whole time. I really, really, really do hope that we get to see Iron Man survive Infinity War, survive Avengers 4, and get one more Iron Man movie out of Downey Jr. Because I would love to go back and fix the Mandarin stuff. We will talk about that in a few videos coming up. But I would also love to see Farhan Tahir come back and play Raza. You don't see him killed on screen, which tells me he's still out there, man. And he's so good. He has so much anger towards Tony Stark that he would play a really awesome... You could almost play the exact same role leading into the Mandarin. But I would love to see something with him because Farhan Tahir is great. And this movie is great, man. I mean, Iron Man is the quintessential origin movie for our superheroes. It got us started on our adventure. And then, of course, I mean, you have to remember the very first and only one post-credit sequence that came all the way at the end of at the credits. There's no pre-credit scene. There's no mid-credit scene. There was just one post-credit scene and involved one man by the name of Samuel L. Jackson playing Nick Fury, showing up. And in the movie, he actually tells Iron Man, you are part of a much bigger universe than you even know. The way I said Captain America, you move Captain America up, it's the perfect starting point. But the launch point that we got to start this whole thing of like, oh man, there could be a bigger universe, is that line from Samuel L. Jackson. I wanted to talk to you about the Avengers Initiative. And Tony's like, huh? He's like, you are part of a much bigger universe than you even know. Just the perfect line to drop in there. And literally, he basically just said, hey, we're creating a Marvel Cinematic Universe. But nobody really knew what that meant at the time. When that happened, it was like, oh, okay, like, we're going to, maybe a sequel, maybe there's more stuff. Could they be building towards something? And then we got another good movie and another good movie. And then all of a sudden, boom, we're off and running into the world of Avengers. So sliding Tony into number 2 from that original spot and putting Cap at number 1, all of a sudden now you have 2 movies that have started to build the massive world that we live in so much better than it really actually starts. And it is, man, I'm telling you, Kevin Feige, man, he's always thinking, and he had to have thought, just in making these movies, Iron Man 2 and Cap, that somewhere, someday, someone would watch these movies chronologically, and the feeling you get watching them is totally different than how I watched them in reality. So cool, man. So Iron Man, the perfect follow-up to Cap, because they're similar but slightly different, which already is starting to set up something later on down the road. Why they might butt heads when they meet. But yes, Iron Man, the quintessential origin story. And now we've got Captain America, the first Avenger, in our pockets. We've got Iron Man in our pockets. We've got 2 of 18 down, 16 left to go as we count our way to Infinity War. Now it's your turn to talk. Let me know what you thought, folks. Do you love Iron Man as much as I do? Is it the best origin story? Hit those comments. Let me know how much you loved it, how much you didn't like it. Were there more things than I said that weren't good about Iron Man? Give me all your greats, all your problems, all the things you like. Hit those comments and tell me. If you're new here, welcome. Please hit the subscribe button and also the bell so you get an alert every time I make a new video, including every new Infinity War countdown video. They'll all be there. You'll get the alerts every time. Please do those 2 things. That's all we got to say, folks. We are off and running on the Seaman's Infinity War countdown. 2 down, 16 to go. I cannot wait, man. The anticipation is starting to build, and I hope I am helping you build it as much as I am building it for myself. For the Seaman Cinema Sit Down, I am the Seaman. Signing off. Peace.